Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of r/IDontWorkHereLady and our story for today. Not only do I not work here, I don't even live in this state. I just found this subreddit today, and I'm honestly so relieved this happens to other people because I had an experience a couple of years ago that I found so bizarre that it's haunted me ever since. I'm using a throwaway because a lot of IRL friends and coworkers know this story. Also, apologies in advance that I'm totally incapable of telling a story succinctly. For background, I work in a very niche field that blends scientific research, analysis, and data science. My company in particular is mostly on the data science side of things. Also, it's relevant to know that my company has exhibit booths at 1 or 2 industry conferences a year to promote our work, and several members of our staff usually present sessions depending on which abstracts ended up getting accepted. I'm one of 2 junior staff responsible for our booth, shipping to the conference, assembling the booth, staffing it, etc. So about 2 years ago, my coworker, who I'll call Megan, and I were at a conference in a Midwestern state unpacking our boxes. We realized we'd forgotten to ship markers, and also a plastic tabletop sign holder had shattered in transit. I checked Google Maps and saw there was an Office Depot nearby and told Megan I'd just go grab what we needed. So off I went. For reference, while I don't remember exactly what I was wearing, it would have been something like pressed trousers, low heels, either a nice blouse or silk shell under a blazer. I was also wearing my conference badge in a lanyard around my neck. It had those sticky ribbon things on the bottom that you use at conferences. Sorry, I don't know if there's a word for those. One said exhibitor, one said presenter, for a session I was co-leading the following day, and one said bronze sponsor, a status my company paid for so we'd get a shout out in the program. So basically, I did not look even remotely like an employee of Office Depot. I was crouched on the floor, looking at sign holders on the bottom shelf, when I heard an angry male voice to my right bark, "Excuse me!" I turned and found a heavyset man standing right next to me, probably middle-aged, business dress, and red from his face down to his collar. I was instantly on edge because he was standing really close to me and seemed angry, but I was at a loss for what he might want of me. I assumed from his "excuse me" that I was in his way, so I scooped up my sign holder, stood up, and scooted out of his way, turning away from him. To my total perplexity, instead of moving into the shelf area I'd just vacated, he followed me. At this point, he seemed pissed. He bellowed out, "Do you hear me? Don't walk away from me!" At this point, I was extremely confused and scared. Here I am, 5 foot, 100-pound woman being screamed at by a guy more than twice my size in the middle of an Office Depot, and the only thing I can think of is this guy is clearly unhinged. I'm vaguely wondering if he thinks I'm a specific person he knows, but I'm mostly just deer in the headlights. He leaned in and said, "I need packing tape," practically trembling with rage. This should have clued me in as to what was happening, but in the moment, I couldn't think why this guy might be aggressively growling his shopping list at me. I backed up quickly and turned to go. Then he grabbed my arm hard, jerked me back toward him, and then with the other hand yanked on my lanyard. He said something along the lines of, "You are being very rude." At this point, I was just totally freaked out and had a full-on adrenaline brain. I pulled away and booked it to the front. The guy at the counter looked alarmed as soon as he saw me and asked if everything was okay. I told him what had happened, and he very seriously asked me if I wanted him to call the police. I kind of vacillated, but said no, because I was in a huge hurry to get back to the conference exhibit hall. I checked out the sign holder, never did get the markers, which I ended up borrowing from a different booth, and was on my way out the door when I heard the angry guy from earlier bellowing something to the cashier about an employee treating him very rudely. At this point, everything clicked, and I realized what had happened, but I hightailed it back to the conference center without sticking around. I felt horrible immediately afterwards on the walk back, especially once my fight-or-flight response died down. I felt ashamed and sick and frustrated with myself for not handling it better or sticking up for myself. In the course of the whole encounter, I hadn't said a single thing to the angry guy. In the moment, I just wanted to get out of the situation as quickly as possible. By the time I'd got back to the exhibit hall, I was kicking myself for not just eviscerating the guy. I got back to the booth and told Megan everything. She was horrified, and while we finished setting up, we speculated on what that guy's problem might have been. We both figured he must have been confused by the conference badge and thought it was a store name tag. Our mutual conclusion, what a psycho. Later that day, I'm walking around the exhibit hall while Megan mans the booth, and I see the angry guy. He's sitting behind a booth for a software vendor that makes a product for our industry. A generic piece of software they individualize, customize for particular companies on a contract basis. And I see from his badge, which he's now wearing but was not wearing in the store, that he's an exhibitor. I immediately go find the exhibit hall security guard and point out the guy to him and tell him he attacked me earlier, grabbing my arm and yanking my lanyard. The security guard could not have given less of a F and basically told me since it didn't happen inside the conference facility, there's nothing to be done. Okay, fair enough. But at this point, as you can imagine, I was very shaken and upset. I went back to the booth. In addition to Megan, someone I'll call Bob was now there. Bob's the director of the department that does the bulk of our technical work. He's not in mine and Megan's direct line of bosses, but as the most senior staffer on the trip, he's more or less in charge while we're at the conference. A lot of our staff use the booth as a hoteling spot between sessions, even when it's not their turn to be there, so he's sitting behind the booth, handling his emails and waiting for his next session to start. I explained to Megan, angry guy is here and working in a vendor booth. And funnily enough, her immediate response is, "What the hell? Then how did he not recognize your badge?" At this point, Bob tunes in and asks what we're talking about. I tell him the whole story, punctuated by Megan's indignant interjections, and don't forget to mention how he grabbed you. Ugh, what a piece of work. That kind of thing. Bob is appalled. He asked me to point this guy out to him, so I walk him within eye line of the other booth and point him out. I don't know exactly what happened after that, but the following day, angry guy found me in the session room getting my slide deck set up for my presentation, and in front of my co-presenter and a few early arrivers, issues the most awkward and phony non-apology I've ever heard. Basically, at no point did he acknowledge what he did was abhorrent, and continually implied I was tricking him by looking like I worked at Office Depot and not immediately correcting his mistake, despite the fact I had no idea he thought I worked there while events were unfolding. I guess it's my responsibility to go around and inform people I don't work for random businesses. I just smiled tightly and said, "Well, hopefully this will be a lesson learned for you. I need to get back to setting up now." He did not stick around for my session. I found out later that Bob, who's highly respected and has a lot of connections, spread the word at the conference that this guy was a jerk to one of his junior colleagues, and two different people at different organizations backed out of deals with this vendor and let them know why. So I'm betting that the vendor was not pleased their employee cost them 2 contracts and poisoned their reputation with a lot of potential clients. Given how small our field is and how specific that software product is to our field, it's very possible they may never sell another contract on it again. There's a competitor product that's just as good and an open source alternative that's clunky but serviceable. Sorry, ma'am, flight attendants aren't actual airport employees. A few days ago, I was between flights at the RSW airport. I'm in my flight attendant uniform, and I get approached every once in a while and do my best to be polite and help people out since most airport questions are easily answerable. A woman approached me and asked me where the smoking area is. I'm not a smoker, and I've only been to this airport a few times, so I'm not actually sure. Me. A smoking area? I think I saw one over by Dunkin' Donuts. I'm not sure if there's one on this side. Lady, way over there? That's the other side of the airport. Are you sure there's not one over here? Mind you, this is a fairly small airport. It takes about 5 minutes to get across the entire terminal. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am. I've only been here a few times, actually. I work out of Minneapolis, so this airport's pretty foreign to me. Maybe you should ask one of the gate agents or someone working at the coffee shop. I try a charming laugh. Lady, but I'm asking you now. Why can't you be helpful here? She's getting frustrated with me. Me, again, I don't actually work here. Us flight attendants don't actually spend a ton of time at the airports we go to. I don't know the layout. My coffee arrives and I ask the barista about smoking areas. Barista, there's a smoking area just over there. You can actually see it from where you're standing, ma'am. It's literally 50 feet away. I hadn't noticed it since I don't smoke. Things like this usually aren't on my radar. Me, oh, it's right there. Nice. Just for future reference, ma'am, flight attendants aren't actually airport employees, so we're kind of helpless with things like this. Have a great day, all right? I'm trying to be charming. Lady, humph. Then why did you try to send me all the way to the other side of the effing planet if it's right there? Whatever. Learn how to do your job, a-hole. She walks to the smoking area in a huff. The barista and I look at each other in silence for a few seconds before sharing a quick laugh. I swear, I did my best to be helpful even though I didn't actually work there, even after explaining this woman insisted that I worked at the airport. Some people. Hope you guys enjoyed the story. If you aren't subscribed, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications for future videos. If you didn't like my opinions, or if you liked my opinions, please let me know in the comments below what you thought of these stories, and I'll see you soon.